guess she Cousin Walmart came here, didn't she? Did you have a teacher here?
Yes.
Well, she's done it 19 years, this stuff. She's like a little scholar. She's amazing. They're like little computers of all this knowledge. 19 years of non-stop study. I'm not trying to say it's study you might want. I'm just saying it's not just, you know, cross your fingers and hope for the best and have a vision. They squeeze their brain, as loving as she puts it. So anyway, you know, I know nothing in comparison with her. I just, you know, I know 2.5 things. Okay, so conventionally, we are known as a person. Ultimate, so then dependent arising is how everything exists. Interdependently. Everything exists in dependence upon 3 levels of dependent arising. The first one is everything in the ordinary world that we know comes into existence in dependence upon causes. Now, Buddha's saying, so that's why Karma Junior School is Buddha's view of the universe, how come things happen. But the way we think about that is in relation to oneself, it's one's own practice. So this can be really profound practice to help us counteract the instinct of ego to feel like a victim, to feel it's not fair, to feel that I didn't ask to get born. You know, and it's true, my parents did not consult me when they made me. Maybe make you, Robina. No, they didn't. They had sex in this physical world, according to science, and I popped out. And then they dare to tell me that I've got to take responsibility. Well, excuse me, if they made me, they are the blame. And I mean that. I'm not being even sarcastic. That for me is logical. If they made me, and they gave me anger, and gave me depression, and gave me jealousy, then you'd better sue them to the hilt. And I'm really not being sarcastic. But we don't think this. We just think, you know, you believe your therapist, you should forgive them. I disagree with you. If they made you, the Buddha says they didn't make you, babe. They gave you a body. The rest of it you brought with you. So when you know that view, you start taking responsibility. Well, it's my anger, it's my love, it's my kindness, it's my being good at music. Guess what? Wow, I can change. But if they made me, I'm paralysed. I can do nothing until they change. That's why if I'm blaming him for my suffering, I'm paralysed as a victim until he decides to change. And what if he doesn't? Then I'll kill him or he'll kill me. Or you go mad, you know. The Buddha says, no, babe, you can change your own mind. That's the miracle, which means I can get happy. If I can change him, that's a bonus. Try to change the world, please, never stop. Meanwhile, you know, anyway. So, okay. The first level of dependent arising, and the first of these 2 truths, which is the basis of understanding emptiness, which is the ultimate reality, is to understand that everything comes into existence in dependence upon infinite number of causes and conditions. Cause and effect. Everything in general, cups and people. Second level of dependent arising, and these are all presented as philosophical arguments and indeed to be experienced in meditation with the prevailing views at the time. The second one is more subtle, that everything that exists in dependence upon many, 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 many bits and pieces, parts in other words. These words of course are abstract to us. Now let's look into that one. The third one, the real meaning of dependent arising, subtle dependent arising, which is the real one that gets us to realise emptiness, the most subtle, which is how we, you know, that's that everything exists in dependence upon the mind calling it that. This is massive, this one. But let's do the second one. It's so tasty, I tell you. Okay. What Buddha's saying is this. Because of this, okay, the root delusion that gives rise to attachment, which gives rise to anger, which gives rise to all the other dramas, and the root delusion such that when we have realised emptiness, that is now cut. The root delusion, known technically as ignorance, Mahamudra in Tibetan. It's this, and it's not just regular old ignorance. If we had regular old ignorance, we'd get enlightened in a couple of years. In other words, you say to me, what's that, Robina? And I'll say, I don't know. That's ordinary ignorance, isn't it? Or let's say, you know, another example, let's say you say to me, that, what is it? I say, I don't know. That's ordinary ignorance. There's a space there, and you'll tell me, oh, Robina, it's an iPad. Then I've suddenly got wisdom. Well, we get enlightened in a minute with that. There's nothing to resist, nothing to argue with. You just get the truth. Boom, you can take it on board immediately. But the trouble with this ignorance, Mahamudra, unawareness, the Tibetan word, ignorance, Mahamudra, unawareness, known colloquially as ego grasping. It's very tasty. This ego grasping is like double trouble. So it's like, not. So if you say to me, what's that? And I'll say, it's a Samsung. Well, believe me, I never had a Samsung, but I pretend I said that. Okay? I'm a Mac fan since '92. I would never touch a Samsung. They stole from Jobs, you know. Steve Jobs was my favourite people. So anyway, let's a simple example. I say, it's a Samsung. And I believe it's a Samsung, and I will swear my death on it's a Samsung. So I've got the wrong view, haven't I? So not only do I not know what it really is, which is an iPad, I've made up a story which is completely mistaken. That's what Buddha's saying all these delusions do, especially the root delusion. So not only do we not know, Buddha says, how things actually exist, but I know it's abstract to you, but I'm just saying the Buddha's words, because of these neuroses. Not only do we not know how things ultimately are empty of intrinsic nature and conventionally are dependent arisings, that's how things do exist. Not only do we not know that, this maripa, this ignorance, has made up the exact opposite story that's completely insane, and the exact 100% opposite view. And we've been clinging to that for eons. And it's like ripping off our skin. So the nature, we know this, the nature of all these delusions, ego grasping, really, I think, we could call that, Buddha would like the term instinct for survival. Like when you get attacked, you have a panic attack, right? That's ego grasping. It's so primordial, it's rooted in fear. You're nearly drowning, someone who tries to hit you, someone disagrees with you, panic attack. That's ego grasping. They're all got the nature of grasping, and they're all in the nature of fear, Buddha says. All of our neuroses, all in the nature of fear. They're hideous suffering, he says. Our virtues, they're our saving grace. They're virtuous, they're clear, they're to some degree in touch with interdependence. They're valid, they're reasonable, they're altruistic. These are who we really are, he says, you know. But there's a wisdom in them, not just virtuous. They're in touch with reality to some degree. They're in touch with interdependence. So let's just say again, Amnon. Okay, give an example. Let's say he's my friend. But back to high school for a second, the way the delusions work, but including ego grasping, the root delusion. Let's say he's my friend and we're chatting away, looking friendly. You just observe us, you can see the body language immediately. We're laughing, he listens to me, I'm listening to him, he sympathises with my constipation, I sympathise with his headache. You get my point? Two, so we could argue that there's love and compassion in Robina and Imran's minds. That's essentially what's happening. I'm wanting to be happy, he's sympathising with my pain. Ordinary, nothing special. You see it immediately, right? Now, the Buddha's saying this. Their virtues, this is my point now, their virtues, they're moral. That's moral, ethical. But look, the Buddha's saying they're rooted in interdependence. Because when you're friendly to each other, there's a feeling of we. Would you agree that? There's a feeling of connectedness and of being we. You get that point? There's really a harmony there. And so when the Buddha's saying when virtues are prevailing, there's not just virtue and goodness and kindness, but there's a sense of interdependence. We're connected to each other. Please hear this literally. You get my point? But you watch what happens when we start to argue. The delusions take over. Panic. Not fair. How dare he say that to me? He's saying, how dare she say that to me? Suddenly there's two separate eyes. Do you get my point? As I quoted last night, Courtin. Based on the assumption of this I, that creates other. It's not cosmic. When there's a sense of harmony, virtue, but also wisdom is there, because wisdom is interdependence. So virtue is in sync with interdependence, which is wisdom and reality. Are you hearing me, people?
Yeah.
It's not just being a nice, gooey person. But delusions are absolutely the opposite. There's no sense of interdependence. There's a sense of rigid, fundamentalist, freaked out, panic-stricken I and him. Look at the world. That's delusions. And thank goodness we can access our virtue. They temper our crazy delusions. Look at the suffering of the world when they can't temper, they can't access their virtues. When you hear about somebody in Gaza or wherever saying, I don't care, 1,000 years, every Israeli get to be burned off the face of the earth. He's got a problem with anger, okay? That's all. It's just called anger. That's a serious problem, isn't it? That guy's got a problem. Don't worry about the politics. I'm not discussing politics. I'm discussing mental states. Anybody who's fundamentalist and fixed and narrow and soft, that person's in unbelievable panic-stricken pain. And it's the opposite to wisdom and it's the opposite to virtue together. So practicing virtue lessens ignorance, lessens suffering, increases happiness, and increases wisdom. This is Buddha's view. Okay, so now, let's analyse how this I exists. So Buddha's saying, because of this maripa, this primordial, instinctive, panic-stricken, fear-based, frantic sense of a separate, lonely, bereft, miserable me, we totally believe that among all these bits and pieces that make up me, and basically we've got body and mind, using Buddha's view. We've got bunches of thoughts, do you agree? We have different sensory parts of our consciousness. We have many, many thoughts and feelings. They're the parts of our mind. Are we communicating here? And we're not for the moment discussing the brain. We're discussing consciousness, Buddha's view. And then secondly, we know we've got a body. Indeed, of course, including the brain. We've got millions of bits of our body. Would you agree with that? In other words, if you start to write down all the components of you, you'd have a volume, wouldn't you? The millions of bits of this and the atoms and the that and the ligaments and the things and the flesh and the blood and the pee-pee and the caca and the nails. There'd be an awful lot of pieces. Do you agree? And an awful lot of pieces of mind. Do we agree? Good. Now Buddha says this. Hey guys, due to this ego grasping, we believe, have since beginningless time, primordially, and every sentient being thinks this way, including the ants and the dogs, we believe 1,000,000,000% that in here somewhere, among all these other parts, there's a special, precious little part called I. He says, don't be ridiculous. Not only is there not one, you don't need one, honey. Which is a very demented way to say it, isn't it? This is beyond hilarious for us. So what he's saying is this. Okay, now let's do some experiments to try and prove this, okay? This is what they study for 30 years, 40 years, and then meditate for another 40, okay? So relax, darling. Sharon, it's okay. So let's just do a little bit of analysis here, okay? I like these little what I tell you. Okay, now. You agree, if I speak words, it's really helpful that the words I say can be proven to be in sync with some reality. It would help if we have a conversation. It's like, if I say to you, I have 14 white cups on my table, you'll really think there's nowhere to go with Robina. She's completely crazy. It's reasonable, isn't it? But if I say to you, I have a cup, and I have a lid and a table, well then you look over here, forget the other things, okay? You look over here, you hear the sound, we speak English, you listen to the sound, and all our mind works quickly, boom, 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 discrimination, intention, attention, all work together, and you go, your eyes come here, you go, cup, lid, table. You with me? And you'll go, yep, she's right. So you'll agree with my statement, won't you? That's a relief. If we could just have every word mean something, and that's what wisdom says. Buddha says that's wisdom. Now, right now, he's saying, just for a second, if I'm attached to this chocolate, it's not a cake, here's chocolate, okay? If I have attachment in my mind, this is something else for a second, a different scenario, forget the scenario. So this is our problem with all the delusions, Buddha says. So I've got, let's say, I see this shape and colour here. My eye consciousness can only cognise two things, shape and colour. But we think it cognises this divine chocolate-covered biscuit. Oh, wow. That's what attachment sees. Attachment, when I'm in love with this one, attachment sees this divine, precious, amazing David, who's the cause of all my happiness. Buddha says we are absurdly exaggerating. That attachment in my mind is a liar. And what it's seeing isn't what's there. That's his simple point. All these delusions have their own lie. And the key way they lie is they exaggerate the status of something. So attachment exaggerates the status of his deliciousness, and therefore, of course, his ability to make me happy, which brings expectation and panic and drama and manipulation and possessiveness. All of these are a function of this bare bones problem called attachment. So if I vomit every time I eat chocolate, then I'm seeing this biscuit through the lens of aversion. I go, how repulsive, get that away from me, That's called aversion. So what I'm seeing there is way more exaggerated. Anger exaggerates its status. I think we get this. That's what he's saying is the function, the delusional function of all the neuroses, the regular day-to-day ones. That they're liars, they misrepresent what's out there. We don't notice, because we believe in the picture that appears to us. As the way they say in Buddhist psychology, and we're going to get back to this scenario here in a minute, okay? The way they say it in Buddhist psychology is that, as Lama Zopa puts it, that everything out there appears back to us in the aspect, that's how they say it in Buddhist psychology, in the aspect of whatever's in my mind. So if there's anger here, I'll always be finding fault. I'll always be seeing enemies. I'll always see ugly things. I'll always be criticising. I'll always get upset. I mean, look at the world. We know people like that. Forget yourself. We know that's true, but this is the point. We're so addicted to that. And these are the ordinary delusions. We're not getting, the ego grasping is more subtle. These are ordinary delusions. That's why doing high school leads us to understand the deeper one. They're all liars. In other words, as soon as he's mean to me, kindness and love go out the window, and attachment and anger come in. And suddenly he appears ugly, him, not fair, how dare he do this to me, then I'll never forgive him. This all exaggerated distortions of some action that he did do. But my anger is so strong, it grossly exaggerates his badness. So it's like he says we can't distinguish between facts and fiction. So wisdom for the Buddha is being in touch with reality, which means getting rid of the delusion, so everything exists as it appears. Everything appears as it exists. That's like liberation. So, now let's get back to this scenario here to try and do some analysis and try to comprehend what Buddha means when he says that there is no independent I in here, specifically in relation to the parts. So, okay. The scenario is this. It's probably tea time, isn't it? Oh, God. 4 o'clock. Do you want to have a breather and have tea and come back?
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, I think it's good. It's going to squeeze your brain a lot more. So I've already shouted and yelled for an hour and a half. So go and have a break, okay? I think so. And then come back fresh, and then we'll go to the analysis and we'll get into the nitty-gritty of emptiness, all right? I think so. Good idea. What am I doing now? Going to my room?
Yes, yes.
Coming to my room. Okay.
ייקח חצי שעה עד 20 לב, בסדר?